So, according to Barry Bonds, he almost went to the Yankees. He talked about this during the season opener on Netflix between the Yankees and Giants Wednesday night. As you know, Barry was a part of the broadcast crew. And this is super interesting because the timeline for when Bonds talks about this happening was during the 1992 to 93 free agent class. Bonds was coming off a season in which he hit for a 311 batting average, 34 home runs, 103 RBIs, and a 1,080 OPS in 140 games with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bonds, as we all know, was drafted by the Pirates in 1985 out of Arizona State, made his major league debut just a year later in 1986, and up to this point in the early 90s, Bonds was already a star with the Pirates, posting 8 and 9 more seasons collectively and averaging 30 home runs per season from 1990 to 92. So Bonds says that when he became a free agent, Steinbrenner called him, offered him what he was looking for in terms of a contract, which at the time would have made him the highest paid player in Major League history. But there was a catch. Bonds talks about how Steinbrenner told him he had to sign the contract that same day by 2 o'clock. Bonds then states, "Excuse me," and hung up on Steinbrenner. And then he further talks about how people around him questioned that decision, what he was doing, and he said he questioned it himself. But he ultimately then decided to sign with the San Francisco Giants. And we all know what Barry went on to do there, the home runs, 756, all that. But keep in mind, when Bonds alleged this occurred, Steinbrenner was serving a lifetime ban from Major League Baseball, which started in 1990 under Commissioner Fay Vincent after Steinbrenner was found paying $40,000 to a gambler to try and dig up dirt on Dave Winfield. Steinbrenner was still allowed to own the team, but he was reportedly forbidden doing any baseball operations decisions. So, yeah, did he call Barry Bonds on a burner phone? How did he get away with that? And ultimately, this ban was lifted in July of 1993, but it makes you wonder. But could you imagine putting late 90s, early 2000s Barry Bonds on the New York Yankees dynasty teams, core four, the short porch? It's hard to fathom, honestly. And hearing this, people can be mad at George because, funny enough, it aligns with his personality. You could really see him doing something like this because George wanted to win. He was very impatient, sometimes made him a little erratic in his decisions. But he had such a strong motivation and eagerness to constantly win. Sometimes that could hurt you in a sense. And I think the most ironic thing about all of this is that the Yankees were more than fine afterwards. They went on to win 4 championships, 96, 98, 99, 2000. And Barry Bonds, as prolific of a power hitter and just a hitter in general, when he was with the San Francisco Giants, he never won a World Series ring in his career. He made just one World Series appearance, which was with the Giants in 2002 against the Angels. And the Yankees pivot, if you want to call it that, funny enough. From 92 to 93, that offseason, Sweeney Murdy touched upon this on Twitter the other day. And it was before my time, so obviously I had to freshen up a little bit on my Yankees history knowledge. But they signed left-handed pitcher Jimmy Key and third baseman Wade Boggs, 2 players who contributed to the Yankees' 96 championship run. Now, the question is, say you put Barry Bonds on the Yankees, what does this look like? Does the core four still remain intact? Do they trade for any of those guys? I remember countless stories from reading Yankee books, watching Yankeeography. The Yankees almost traded Mariano to Seattle. I don't know if they were almost going to trade Jeter in terms of what he was as a prospect, but George was always looking to win in the now. So certainly that was a possibility he maybe considered. I do remember hearing the Yankees almost traded Bernie Williams at one point, and there was actually a deal that was put in place in 98, but the Yankees backed out last minute. It reportedly would have sent Bernie Williams to the Tigers. Bob Watson, the Yankees GM at the time, backed out of it. And this is where I have to give credit to Gene Michael. He really knew how to work with George, who I think was a great owner, despite the criticism and certain things that he did. He wanted to win. He had little patience for a rebuild, but Gene Michael knew how to work with George, rebuild the Yankees, keep a group that brought them multiple championships through the 90s, early 2000s, And that was simply drafting the core four, trading for Paul O'Neill, trading for David Cohn, bringing in David Wells. That's what put the Yankees over the top. From a joke to a juggernaut, from 80s to 90s. And if we want to think about this in the best hypothetical way possible, say the Yankees signed Barry Bonds, had a majority of the core that we came to love still intact throughout that 90s and early 2000s run, I really wonder how that trajectory would change. I mean, maybe it changes for the better, but maybe it doesn't. And don't get me wrong, Bonds was a great player. Had a big ego, but great player. But those Yankee teams were a rock-solid group. Maybe the outcome isn't as good as we might hypothesize. So that's what's so funny about this. The fact that George Steinbrenner screwed up in his negotiations, allegedly, with Barry Bonds. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because all the Yankees pretty much did from that point on throughout the next decade was win. And Barry Bonds went to one World Series with the Giants in 2002. They lost. Never won a ring, so you have to sit there and think, does he kind of regret this a little bit? I don't know. But what would you guys have liked to see? You know, are you mad at George? Do you blame him? Or do you guys not really care? Because it kind of worked out for the Yankees anyway. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let's go Yankees.